Welcome to the second part of our small business training course. Today's lesson is all about getting started, getting your business off the ground in the first place. But before we begin, we're going to think about what we covered last time. So last time we were thinking about the advantages and disadvantages of owning your own business as opposed to working for somebody else. And also we were thinking about the advantages and disadvantages of different businesses. This is a little bit of a taster to get you thinking about what kind of businesses you could run yourselves. And then the final thing that we did last time was to get you to select a business that you could do, select something that you think you could do as a new business. So this week we're going to be thinking about how we get things going, and we're going to cover a few things. So first of all, we're going to cover starting small. We're going to think about calculating the cost of setting up a new business. Going to think about whether a sales type of business or a service type of business is the best business for you. And then finally, we're going to think about putting all of those things together and asking ourselves the question, is the business that I'm thinking about actually feasible? Will it work? So let's think about getting started. Now, I came across a quote from a guy called Aliko Dangote. Now, apologies if I haven't pronounced that name correctly. He apparently is the wealthiest man in Africa. He's a Nigerian gentleman. But he said, to build a successful business, you must start small and dream big. And I like that. And thinking about some of the big businesses that are around the world even, a lot of them started small. Even companies like Microsoft started in a garage, and Amazon again started much smaller than it is now. So there's no shame in thinking small in terms of starting your own business, even though you might want it to grow and you might be wanting to have big dreams about where the business will go, or where you want the business to go. I think the real important thing is, when you're getting going, is to be realistic about how you're going to start. Be realistic about what kind of things you need to do, or the things that you need to get started. So let's just think about that in a little bit more detail now. So a few questions for you to think about. So thinking about the businesses that you may have already chosen, the kind of businesses that you want to do, ask yourself, what things do you already have? What equipment perhaps you already have? Perhaps if you want to have a business that fixes things, you may already have some tools. So in other words, you may already have some of the things that you need, or you may already have all of the things you need to get your business going. The chances are, though, that most people would need to acquire some things, would need to buy some things to get their business started. Again, this could be equipment, or if it's a selling sort of a business, it might be initial stock to sell. And then the final question, really thinking about how you get going, how you start your business, is how much is all of this going to cost? That's a very important thing to think about, because if you're wanting to start a business and it's going to cost a lot of money, you may wish to change your mind. So for example, in previous times when we've run these courses, there were suggestions about being a landlord, for example, or being a boda driver as a new business. Now, both of those things needs a lot of money. So if you want to be a landlord, you have to buy a property, and the chances are none of us have enough money to buy a property to rent out. And the same with a boda driver. Obviously, it's no good being a boda driver if you don't have a motorbike. And if you don't have a motorbike, the cost of getting one is quite high. So I would suggest that being a boda driver, for example, would be a business that you cannot start small. That's a business that needs quite a lot of money to get going. And it may be that you need to start with something smaller just to get going, eventually build up enough savings to make your business bigger and progress. But those are things that we'll be thinking about in future lessons. So another thing I'd like us to think about in terms of starting the business is whether to go for a sales business where you're selling things, or go for a service business where you are doing jobs. You might be fixing things, or you might be doing tasks that other people don't have the skills to do, or perhaps doing tasks that other people don't want to do. They prefer to pay you to do those things rather than do it themselves. And there are advantages and disadvantages of both of those types of business. And in the exercises today, we're going to be thinking about some of those advantages and disadvantages. But in terms of thinking about whether the business you want to do is going to be a service business or it's going to be a sales business, you might want to think about what skills you already have. So, for example, if you want to have a service business that fixes electronics, you need to have some skills there. You need to be able to do that job. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to have a business doing that. And so in this slide, we've got a few advantages of sales businesses and a few advantages of service businesses. There will be many more, and I'm sure you'll come up with lots of other ideas as well. So, for example, for a sales business where you're selling something, obviously people need to buy things, especially essential things like food. And also, another advantage is that there's an ongoing or a continuous demand for buying essential things. So people will always need food to eat. Thinking about a service business, there are a number of advantages there too. So, for example, selling your skills. If you've got skills that other people don't have, then they are valuable and you can build a business around that. Another advantage of a service business might be that the startup costs are lower. You may already have the tools to do that sort of business, or in fact it may be that you don't need any tools really. It's just your skill and your time that you're selling in that business. Also, a service business can be a bit more flexible perhaps than a selling business. If you are selling things, you need to be open. People need to know when you are open so that they can come and buy things. If you have a service business, you can possibly pick and choose when you do jobs, and perhaps be flexible to work around when people want you to do jobs as well. So let's think about all these things in a little bit more detail. As usual, we've got some exercises for you to do that will help you think through some of those things. So first of all, I want you to work as a group, and I'd like you to list the advantages of a selling business and also list the advantages of a service business. You might want to use one piece of paper, list the advantages of selling on one side of the piece of paper, and then list the advantages of a service business on the other side. You might find that there are the same advantages for both in some cases, and I would expect that. So don't be afraid to put the same things on both sides of the paper, on both the selling side and the service side. And then the second exercise is, again, something that we are going to do increasingly over this course, is to think around the businesses that you are choosing to do, your own choice of business. So I'd like you to do this exercise as individuals. So as an individual, list the things that you already have and the things that you would need, plus their cost, to get your business started. And then add all of those things up so you have a total of what it would cost you to start the business that you have in mind. And then once you've got that number, once you know how much it's going to cost, think about whether or not it's feasible. So is it too much? Is it too expensive to start the business? Is it too big? Or is it something that you can start because actually you can start small? And the other thing to point out really is, if you find that you've calculated the cost and decide actually it's too expensive to start that business, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to think of another business instead. The whole point of this exercise really is to make sure that when you're thinking about developing your business, you're thinking about doing something that's realistic and something that is likely to work and be successful for you. So I hope you get on all right with those exercises. Again, there'll be lots of discussion among your group, I'm sure, and I'm sure you'll have lots of things that you'll think about and come up with that I haven't thought about. So good luck with that.